My stepmom sold my dog while I was at work because it sheds too much. She smirked. It's my house, my rules. I pulled the deed out of my safe. Actually, mom put the house in my name before she died. I evicted her and my dad with 24 hours notice and got my dog back. Look, I never thought I'd be the guy posting one of these stories. You scroll through Reddit, see these wild family drama posts, and think, no way that's real. But here I am at 2 a.m., still processing what happened over the last 3 weeks, and I need to get this off my chest. Some background first because this is going to be a long one. Grab a snack. I'm Derek, 27 years old, work as an electrical engineer at a pretty decent firm in Columbus, Ohio. Single, live alone, and until recently, my best friend was a 4-year-old golden retriever named Biscuit. My mom named him that before she passed. Said his fur was the exact color of her grandmother's buttermilk biscuits. I know it's a goofy name for a 70-pound dog, but every time I called him, I thought of her. That dog was the last real connection I had to my mother. My mom passed away when I was 23. Ovarian cancer. Caught too late, moved too fast. She was only 51. My dad and I were wrecked and absolutely devastated. Mom was the glue that held everything together in our family. She was the one who made holidays feel like holidays. She was the one who remembered everyone's birthdays, who called just to check in, who made our house feel like a home. She had this laugh that you could hear from 3 rooms away. This way of making everyone feel like they mattered. When she got sick, the whole neighborhood showed up with casseroles and flowers and offers to help. That's the kind of person she was. After she passed, I threw myself into work, finished my engineering degree, got the job at the firm, started building something for myself. Grief does weird things to people, and for me, it meant staying busy every waking moment so I wouldn't have to think about the fact that she was gone. Dad went a different direction. Within 8 months of mom being gone, he started dating Linda. Linda was a woman from his grief support group. 53 years old, twice divorced, and she had this way of looking at you like she was constantly calculating your net worth. From our first meeting, something felt off. She smiled at all the right moments, said all the right things, but her eyes never quite matched. They stayed cold, assessing, like she was running calculations in her head. I tried to give her a chance. I really did. Mom would have wanted me to be happy for Dad if he found someone new. She wasn't the type to expect him to be alone forever. She actually talked about that, near the end, told him she wanted him to find happiness again someday. But I don't think Linda is what she had in mind. Linda moved in with Dad after 6 months of dating. They got married at the courthouse 3 months after that. No ceremony, no guests, just signed the papers and went to dinner. I found out about the wedding through a Facebook post. My own father's wedding, and I learned about it scrolling through my phone at the gym. He called me the next day to explain, said it was a spontaneous decision, and they didn't want to make a big fuss. Linda had pushed for that, I'm sure. She knew I didn't like her, knew I'd probably try to talk Dad out of it if I'd known in advance. Here's where things get complicated. The house my dad lives in, the one Linda moved into, that was my mom's house. Her parents left it to her when they passed. It wasn't a mansion or anything, but it was a solid 4-bedroom colonial in a nice suburb. Good neighborhood, good schools. The kind of place that's worth a decent chunk of change these days. Mom grew up in that house. Took her first steps on those hardwood floors. Carved her initials into the oak tree in the backyard when she was 8 years old. When Mom got sick, she sat me down one afternoon when Dad was at work. She was already frail by then, her hair gone from chemo, but her eyes were sharp as ever. She told me something that would change everything, though I didn't fully understand it at the time. She said, "Derek, I love your father, but I know him. When I'm gone, he's going to need someone else. He's not built to be alone. And whoever comes next, I need to make sure this family's legacy is protected." I started to argue. Dad wouldn't do anything to jeopardize the house. He loved this place as much as we did. Mom shook her head. "It's not about love, honey. It's about vulnerability. Your father has a good heart, but he can be led. He wants to make people happy. And someone could take advantage of that." She had already talked to a lawyer. The house was being transferred into my name. I would be the sole owner the moment she passed. She made me promise not to tell Dad until it was necessary. She didn't want to hurt him, didn't want him to think she didn't trust him, but she knew. Somehow she just knew. The paperwork was filed, notarized, everything done properly. The lawyer kept copies. I kept the original deed in a fireproof safe in my apartment, and for 4 years, I never said a word about it. See, Dad never asked about the house. He just assumed it was his, and Linda definitely assumed it was his. They paid property taxes on it, or at least Dad did with Mom's life insurance money. They maintained it, lived in it, treated it like it belonged to them. I let it happen because honestly, I didn't need the house. I had my own place, my own life. Dad seemed happy enough with Linda, even if I found her insufferable. What was the point of starting drama over a piece of paper? I visited maybe once a month, came for Sunday dinners sometimes when Linda was feeling hospitable enough to include me. She tolerated me the way you tolerate a fly that keeps landing on your food. Never outright hostile, just dismissive. Everything about her screamed, "I'm the woman of this house now." She redecorated within the first year. Got rid of Mom's curtains, her furniture, even repainted the walls. The soft yellow that Mom had chosen for the kitchen became sterile gray. The floral wallpaper in the hallway was stripped and painted beige. By the second year, you wouldn't know my mother ever lived there. Dad noticed me withdrawing. He called a few times, asked why I didn't come around more. I made excuses. Work, busy schedule, traffic. But the truth was, walking into that house felt like walking into a stranger's home. My childhood bedroom was now Linda's craft room. She didn't even do crafts. It was just storage for her stuff. Mom's garden was paved over for a patio that Linda wanted for her book club meetings. The kitchen where Mom taught me to make her famous chocolate chip cookies had been gutted and replaced with modern cabinets and stainless steel everything. Linda had erased her, systematically, thoroughly, without a single ounce of remorse, and Dad let it happen. But I still came around because Biscuit was there. After Mom died, I was living in a tiny studio apartment that didn't allow pets. The landlord was strict about it. Some bad experience with a previous tenant's cat. Dad offered to keep Biscuit at the house since there was a big backyard, and I could visit whenever I wanted. It seemed like a good solution at the time. Biscuit loved that yard. He'd chase squirrels for hours, dig holes near the fence, roll around in the grass where Mom used to garden. So every Sunday, I'd drive over, spend a few awkward hours making small talk with Dad while Linda shot me dirty looks, and then I'd take Biscuit for a long walk around the neighborhood. Those walks were the only part of the visits I actually enjoyed. Just me and my dog, talking through my problems while he wagged his tail and pretended to understand. Linda hated Biscuit from day one. The very first time she came to the house, she wrinkled her nose at him like he was some kind of pest. Didn't even try to pet him when he came over wagging his tail, hoping to make a new friend. She just pushed past him and muttered something about big dogs being so clumsy. She complained about the shedding constantly. Golden retrievers shed like it's their job. I get it. But Mom never minded. She used to say the fur was just evidence of love. She'd find Biscuit's fur on her clothes before important meetings, and just laugh, say it was her good luck charm. Linda called it disgusting and unsanitary. She bought one of those expensive robotic vacuums specifically for the dog hair, then complained when it wasn't enough. First, she made Dad keep Biscuit outside more and more. Then she banned him from the upstairs entirely, putting up a baby gate that he would sit and whine at. Then he wasn't allowed on any furniture, even though he'd been sleeping on the couch since he was a puppy. Then he was basically living in the backyard full time, only allowed inside when it was too cold or rainy. I watched my dog's quality of life decline with every visit. He seemed sad, less energetic. He'd light up when I arrived, then look confused when I had to leave without him. Every time I brought it up, Dad would just sigh and say, "Linda's got allergies, son. We're doing the best we can." Linda did not have allergies. I saw her holding the neighbor's cat once, cooing at it like it was a baby. She had control issues. Big difference. I started talking about moving into a bigger place so I could take Biscuit back. Started looking at apartments that allowed large dogs. Even put some applications in. It was going to take a few months to find the right place and save up the deposit, but I had a plan. I was going to get my dog back and cut my visits down to maybe holidays only. Dad and Linda could have each other. Then 3 weeks ago, everything exploded. It was a Wednesday. I remember because Wednesdays are my longest days at work. We have project meetings that run until 6, sometimes 7. My boss is old school about phones during meetings, so mine stays on silent in my bag the whole time. When I finally checked my phone in the parking lot around 7:30, I had 4 missed calls from Dad and 2 from an unknown number. My stomach dropped immediately. Nothing good ever comes from 4 missed calls. I called Dad back first. He picked up on the second ring. His voice was weird, kind of tight and uncomfortable, like he was trying to swallow something. "Derek, hey, listen, I need to tell you something before you come over this weekend." My heart started pounding. "What's going on? Is everything okay?" Long pause. Linda and I made a decision about Biscuit. My grip on the steering wheel tightened. I hadn't even started the car yet. "What kind of decision?" Another pause. Then I heard Linda's voice in the background saying, "Just tell him already, Richard. He's going to find out anyway. Dad cleared his throat. Linda found a family through one of those rehoming websites. Good people, they have a farm outside of Cincinnati. They came and picked Biscuit up this afternoon. For about 10 seconds, I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. It felt like someone had punched me in the chest while simultaneously pulling the floor out from under me. You gave away my dog? Derek, it wasn't working out. The shedding was too much for Linda. Her allergies have been terrible. The vet bills, the food, it was all adding up. This family will give him a good home, more space, other dogs to play with. He'll be happier. That's my dog, Dad. Mom gave him to me. You can't just give away my property without asking me. Linda's voice again, closer to the phone now. She must have grabbed it from Dad. Your property? That dog has been living in our house for 4 years, eating our food, destroying our furniture, tracking mud everywhere. You didn't even take care of him yourself. You showed up once a week to play fetch and then left us to deal with everything else. If he was really so important to you, you would have found a way to keep him at your own place years ago. I was literally in the process of finding a new apartment so I could take him back. I told Dad that 2 months ago. Well, too late. He's gone. And honestly, it's for the best. That animal was a health hazard. Fur everywhere, the smell, the barking at all hours. My house, my rules. And I decided that dog had to go. My blood was pounding in my ears now. Every word she said felt like a slap. Your house? I repeated slowly. That's right, my house. The house I live in with my husband. The house I've been maintaining and cleaning and decorating for 3 years while you waltz in once a week like you're doing us some kind of favor. This is my home, Derek, and I have every right to decide what animals are allowed in it. I could hear the smugness dripping from every word. She thought she had won. She thought she was untouchable. She had finally gotten rid of the last piece of my mother in that house. And she was proud of herself. Put Dad back on the phone. Shuffling sounds. Then, Dad again. Derek, son, I know you're upset, but maybe this is for the best. You're busy with work. You don't have time for a dog anyway. Biscuit will be happy on the farm. Those people seemed really nice. Dad, you realize you just let your wife give away the dog Mom named, right? The last living thing Mom loved that was still in that house? The dog she got specifically because she wanted me to have a companion after she was gone? Silence. I didn't think about it like that, he said quietly. No, you didn't think at all. You just did whatever Linda wanted, like always. I hung up before he could respond. My hands were shaking, not from sadness, not even from anger exactly, but from something else entirely. A cold, calm certainty that had settled into my bones like ice water. Linda wanted to play the my house, my rules card. Fine. Time to show her whose house it actually was. I drove home on autopilot, barely aware of the traffic lights and stop signs. When I got to my apartment, I went straight to my closet, pulled out the fireproof safe I hadn't opened in years, and retrieved the folder my mother had given me. The original deed to the house at 1847 Maple Court, signed over to Derek James Mitchell, notarized, legally binding, witnessed by 2 impartial parties. Along with it was a letter from my mother's lawyer confirming the transfer and contact information in case I ever needed assistance. I sat on my bed and stared at those documents for a long time. Mom had known. 4 years before this moment, she had seen it coming. Maybe not the specific circumstances, but the general shape of things. She knew Dad would remarry. She knew whoever came next might not have the family's best interests at heart. She had prepared for this possibility and handed me the tools to protect myself. It was nearly midnight, but I didn't care. I emailed the lawyer, a woman named Patricia Graves, who had handled my mother's estate. I explained the situation and asked for an emergency consultation the next morning. Then I started researching tenant eviction laws in Ohio. What I found made me smile for the first time all night. Ohio is a landlord-friendly state. If someone is living in your property without a lease agreement, they're considered month-to-month tenants at best. Under certain circumstances, specifically if the tenant violates rules or conducts themselves in a way that causes harm to the property or owner, you can issue an accelerated eviction notice. 3 days was standard for most violations. But if there was theft or destruction of property involved, you could make a case for immediate removal. My dog was my property. Linda had disposed of my property without my consent. That's theft, or at the very least, conversion of property. I was going to get Biscuit back, and Linda was going to learn exactly whose house she was living in. Thursday morning, 9 a.m. sharp, I was sitting in Patricia Graves' office. She looked exactly like I remembered from 4 years ago. Silver hair pulled back in a bun, reading glasses perched on her nose, and eyes that had seen every kind of family drama imaginable. Your mother mentioned this day might come, Patricia said, after I finished explaining everything. Not in so many words, but she told me to keep my files ready. She had a sense about things. I showed her the deed, explained the situation with Linda, told her about Biscuit. She listened without interrupting, nodding occasionally, making notes on a yellow legal pad. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair and studied me for a moment. Everything is in order. You are the sole legal owner of that property. Your father and his wife have been living there as tenants, whether they knew it or not. So I can evict them. You can. The question is how quickly and on what grounds. She flipped through some papers. You mentioned your stepmother sold your dog without permission. Do you have evidence that the dog belonged to you? I nodded. Biscuit's registered with the county under my name. I have vet records going back 4 years showing me as the owner. I paid for his shots, his checkups, bought his food when I could afford it. There are photos of me with him since he was a puppy. Receipts for everything. Good. That establishes ownership clearly. And she admitted to rehoming the dog without your consent? On the phone. My dad heard everything. She was proud of it. Patricia tapped her pen against the desk thoughtfully. Here's what I recommend. We file a police report for theft of property. Your dog is valued property under Ohio law. At the same time, we serve eviction notice on the grounds of that theft, as well as unauthorized occupancy since they never had a formal lease or your permission to live there in the first place. How fast can we do this? We can have the notice served by tomorrow. As for how quickly they have to leave, that depends on the judge if it goes to court. But given the circumstances, I think we can make a strong case for expedited removal. 24 to 72 hours. I didn't even hesitate. Do it. She handed me a stack of forms. Fill these out. I'll have my assistant contact the county sheriff for the notice service. And Derek, be prepared for this to get ugly. Family evictions always do. Patricia, my stepmother sold my dead mother's dog to strangers. It's already ugly. She nodded, the ghost of a smile on her lips. Fair point. By Friday afternoon, everything was in motion. The sheriff's department had the eviction notice ready to serve. The police report was filed, and I had tracked down the family Linda sold Biscuit to through some creative searching online. Turns out they posted about their new rescue golden retriever on a local community Facebook page, complete with photos. It was definitely Biscuit. I'd know that goofy face anywhere. I messaged them directly, explained the situation as calmly as I could, and offered to pay twice what they paid for him. They were understandably confused at first. Why would someone claim a dog they'd gotten through a legitimate rehoming site? When I sent them the registration documents and vet records proving Biscuit was mine, their confusion turned to horror. Apparently, Linda had told them Biscuit belonged to an elderly neighbor who had passed away and she was just helping find him a new home out of the goodness of her heart. Complete fabrication. She'd spun this whole sob story about being such a good Samaritan. The family, the Petersons, were genuinely decent people. An older couple, probably in their 60s, with a big farmhouse and about 10 acres of land. They apologized repeatedly even though they hadn't done anything wrong. They'd only had Biscuit for 2 days and hadn't even changed his name yet. Said he seemed sad the whole time, kept looking around like he was searching for something, barely touched his food. Mrs. Peterson actually had tears in her eyes when she told me how confused he seemed. When I drove out to their farm on Saturday morning, my heart was pounding the whole way. What if he didn't remember me? What if he was already attached to them? I shouldn't have worried. The moment I got out of my car and called his name, Biscuit came sprinting across the field like a golden blur. He nearly knocked me over, jumping up with his paws on my shoulders, licking my face, making these little whining sounds like he was trying to tell me everything that had happened to him. I'm not ashamed to admit I cried. Right there in front of strangers, hugging my dog while he licked my face and wagged his tail so hard his whole body shook. 4 years of loss and grief came pouring out of me in that moment. The Petersons stood back and let us have our reunion, then refused to take any money when I offered. Said the right thing was just to give him back where he belonged. I left them my contact information and promised to send them photos of Biscuit thriving. Now came the hard part. Sunday morning, 10 a.m. I pulled up to 1847 Maple Court with Biscuit in the back seat and a folder full of legal documents on my passenger seat. A sheriff's deputy was parked at the curb. We'd coordinated this in advance. My hands were steady as I walked up to the front door. My front door. And I knocked. Linda answered. She was wearing a robe and slippers, clearly not expecting company this early on a Sunday. When she saw me, her expression shifted from annoyed to confused to something approaching fear in about 3 seconds. What are you doing here? And why is that dog in your car? I told you. He's gone. Funny story about that, I said, holding up Biscuit's leash. Turns out the people you sold him to weren't too happy when they found out you lied about owning him. He's back with me now. Where he belongs. Her face went red. That dog was a nuisance, and I had every right to... Linda. I cut her off, keeping my voice calm and even. You had no rights. You never had any rights. Not to the dog, not to this house. Not to anything. That's when Dad appeared behind her, looking bewildered. Derek, what's going on? Why is there a deputy outside? I looked past Linda directly at my father. Dad, I didn't want it to come to this. I really didn't. But you and Linda need to leave this house. Today. Linda laughed, a sharp, ugly sound. Leave? Are you out of your mind? This is our home. Your father owns this house. No, he doesn't. I held up the deed. Dad squinted at it, confused. Linda snatched it from my hand, her eyes scanning the document. I watched her face go pale as she read. This is a mistake, she said, her voice shaking slightly. This has to be a forgery. It's not. Mom transferred ownership to me before she died. Legally, properly, with witnesses and a notary. The house has been mine for 4 years. You've been living here as guests. Guests who never asked permission, and who recently stole my property. Dad grabbed the deed from Linda, reading it slowly. His hands were trembling. Catherine did this, he whispered. She wanted to protect the family legacy. She knew that if something happened to you, or if you made poor decisions, the house could be lost. She loved you, Dad. But she also knew you better than you know yourself. Poor decisions? Linda shrieked. Are you calling me a poor decision? I'm calling you a thief, I said flatly. You took my dog and sold him to strangers. That's theft of property. I filed a police report, and now I'm exercising my rights as the legal property owner to evict both of you. The deputy stepped forward. Ma'am, sir, I have the eviction notice here. You have 24 hours to vacate the premises. Linda's face contorted with rage. 24 hours? That's insane. You can't do that. We have rights. We've lived here for 3 years. We'll sue. We'll fight this. Patricia had warned me she'd say something like this. I was ready. Actually, because you're occupying my property without a lease and you've committed theft of my belongings, the accelerated eviction timeline applies. You can challenge it in court if you want, but I have documentation going back 4 years proving ownership. Every piece of paper is notarized and witnessed. How much documentation do you have proving you're allowed to live here? Linda opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. Nothing. Dad finally spoke. His voice was quiet, broken. Derek, son, please, let's talk about this. We can work something out. I'm your father. For a moment, I almost wavered. This was still my dad. The man who taught me to ride a bike, who came to my baseball games even when it rained, who held my hand at Mom's funeral when neither of us could stop crying. But then I thought about Biscuit, alone and confused, being loaded into a stranger's car. I thought about Mom's curtains in a landfill somewhere. Her furniture, her memories, all of it thrown away like garbage. I thought about 4 years of watching Linda slowly erase every trace of my mother's existence, while Dad just went along with it because it was easier than fighting. You stopped acting like my father when you let her do whatever she wanted, I said. When you let her give away the last piece of Mom I had left, you chose her over me, Dad. Over and over again. Every time she complained about Biscuit. Every time she threw away Mom's things. You chose her. This is the consequence. Linda grabbed Dad's arm. Richard, do something. Make him stop. But Dad just stood there, staring at the deed in his hands like it was a letter from the grave, which, in a way, it was. The next 24 hours were chaos. Linda tried everything. She called a lawyer, but it was Sunday, and no one was available on short notice. She called the police, but the deputy explained that I had every legal right to evict them, and they'd already verified the paperwork. She even tried calling me directly, alternating between threats and tearful pleas. I blocked her number after the 3rd call. Dad called once, around 11 that night. He sounded exhausted. I don't understand how this happened, he said. Your mother never told me about the house. We were married for 26 years. She never said a word, because she knew how you'd react. She knew you'd feel hurt, betrayed. But she also knew that if she didn't protect the house, there was a chance you'd lose it, or someone would take advantage of you. She thought Linda would take advantage of me. She didn't know Linda specifically, but she knew something might happen, some vulnerability. She wanted to make sure I could protect the family's legacy. This house belonged to her parents' dad. Her grandparents built it in 1952. It was supposed to pass down through generations. She didn't want it to end up belonging to someone who never even met them. Long silence on the phone. I loved her, Derek. I really did. I know, Dad. But you also moved on really fast. And then you let Linda run the show. You let her throw away Mom's things like they were worthless. You let her repaint mom's rooms and rip out her garden. You let her banish mom's dog to the backyard like he was a pest. And now you let her sell that dog without even asking me. I thought I was just trying to make everyone happy. Yeah, well, you made Linda happy, at the expense of everything else. He didn't have a response to that. Monday morning, I drove by the house at 8 a.m. There was a moving truck in the driveway. Linda was screaming at some movers about being careful with her furniture. Dad sat on the front steps, staring at nothing. I parked across the street, didn't get out, just watched. At one point, Dad looked up and saw my car. We made eye contact. He raised a hand in something that might have been a wave. I nodded once. Then I drove away. They were out by 3 p.m. The deputy sent me a text confirming the house was vacated. I drove over after work to do a walkthrough. The place was trashed. Not vandalized exactly, just messy. Linda had clearly left in a hurry and hadn't bothered cleaning anything. There were holes in the walls where her pictures had been. Garbage bags piled in the kitchen. A foul smell coming from the fridge where she'd left expired food to rot out of spite. But the bones of the house were still there. The hardwood floors Mom had restored herself over one long summer. The big bay window where she used to sit and read on Sunday mornings. The fireplace where we'd hang stockings every Christmas. I stood in the living room for a long time. Biscuit sitting at my feet, both of us just breathing in the silence. Mom would be proud, I said out loud. Biscuit wagged his tail. Word spread fast, as it always does in families. My Aunt Rachel, Mom's sister, was the first to call. She'd heard about the eviction from my cousin, who'd heard it from someone else. The family grapevine works fast. She wasn't angry. She was relieved. Your mother told me about the house, Aunt Rachel admitted. Years ago, right after she set it up. She made me promise not to say anything unless absolutely necessary. I think she hoped it would never come to this. You knew this whole time? I knew. And I watched your father move that woman in and let her take over. And I bit my tongue because that's what your mother wanted. But I'm glad you finally did something, Derek. Linda had no business being in that house. She didn't respect it, didn't respect Catherine's memory. Good riddance. Uncle Bob, Dad's brother, had a different perspective. He called me a vindictive little punk and said I'd regret destroying my relationship with my father. I let him yell for about 3 minutes, then hung up mid-sentence. Cousins were split down the middle. Some thought I was justified. Others thought I was cruel. The family group chat exploded with opinions. I muted it after the first 100 messages. But the real drama was just getting started. 3 days after the eviction, Linda showed up at my workplace. I was in the middle of a project review when my coworker Jake tapped me on the shoulder and said there was a very angry woman at reception asking for me. I walked out to find Linda standing in the lobby, arms crossed, face red. She'd dressed up for this, wearing a nice blazer like she was going to a business meeting. We need to talk, she said. No, we don't. You can't just throw us out on the street. I've talked to a lawyer, we have rights. We lived there for 3 years. That makes us tenants with protections. Your lawyer is wrong. You had no lease, no rental agreement, nothing in writing. You were guests who overstayed your welcome. And then you stole my property. The police report is already filed. Her face went even redder. That stupid dog was not worth all this. To you, maybe. Not to me. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. I will make your life miserable. I will tell everyone in this family what you did. I will drag your mother's name through the mud. I will... Ma'am. The security guard had walked over, hand on his radio. I'm going to have to ask you to leave. Linda looked at the guard, then back at me. For a second, I thought she might actually take a swing. Instead, she turned and stormed out, slamming the glass door so hard it rattled. Jake appeared at my elbow. What was that about? Long story, family stuff. She seemed nice. I laughed for the first time in days. A week later, Dad and Linda moved into a cramped apartment on the other side of town. The motel had gotten too expensive. From what I heard through the family grapevine, Linda was furious about the downgrade. She'd apparently built her whole retirement plan around living in that house forever, eventually inheriting it after Dad passed. She hadn't counted on there being nothing to inherit. She tried one more thing before giving up. She filed a lawsuit claiming unjust enrichment and demanding compensation for the improvements she'd made to the property. New paint, new appliances, the patio. Patricia called me with the news and told me not to worry. This is a desperation move. She's claiming she added value to your property and deserves payment, but she made those changes without the owner's permission. If anything, you could countersue for altering your property without consent. So what do? We respond with a counterclaim for the cost of removing her modifications and restoring the original features, plus damages for the theft of your dog, plus legal fees. 2 weeks later, Linda dropped the lawsuit. Turns out her lawyer told her she'd lose and end up owing me money. Smart lawyer. Dad called me the day the lawsuit was dropped. I'm staying with Linda, he said. She's my wife, but I understand why you did what you did. Do you? Your mother was right about me. I do let people push me around. I let Linda push me around. And I should have protected Biscuit. Should have protected a lot of things. He paused. I'm not asking you to forgive me. Just wanted you to know that I understand. Thanks, Dad. Maybe someday we can have lunch or something. Just the two of us. No Linda. Maybe someday. I'm not ready yet. But maybe. I can live with maybe. 3 months have passed since the eviction. The week after Dad and Linda moved out, I hired a cleaning crew to deal with the mess they'd left behind. 8 hours and 12 garbage bags later, the house was livable again. The smell from the fridge took another 2 days to fully clear out. I moved in that weekend, brought all my stuff from the apartment, set up my life in the home my mother left me. Biscuit explored every room like he was rediscovering an old friend. He found his favorite spot on the couch within the first hour and claimed it immediately. The first major project was the garden. I spent 3 weekends ripping out Linda's patio stones. The concrete was heavier than I expected, and I had to rent a jackhammer from Home Depot to break it up. My neighbor, an older guy named Frank who'd known my mom for years, came over to help. Your mother would be happy to see this, Frank said, hauling a chunk of concrete to the dumpster I'd rented. She loved that garden. Used to bring me tomatoes every summer. I remember. She'd send me over with baskets of them. Linda never even said hello to me. 3 years living next door, not once. We finished clearing the patio by the end of the month. I brought in fresh soil, planted rose bushes, lavender, the same flowers Mom used to grow. Found her old gardening gloves in a box in the garage and started using them. The inside of the house took longer. I painted over Linda's gray walls, brought back the warm colors Mom had chosen, found curtains at an antique store that looked similar to the ones Linda had thrown away, bought a kitchen table at an estate sale that had the same vintage feel as Mom's original. Aunt Rachel came to visit when I'd finished most of the work. She walked through the rooms slowly, touching the walls, looking at everything. It's not exactly the same, she said, but it feels like Catherine again, like her spirit is back. That's what I was going for. She hugged me tight. She'd be so proud of you, Derek. The family drama settled down eventually. Uncle Bob stopped calling after I told him I'd block his number if he contacted me again. The cousins moved on to other gossip. The group chat went quiet. Linda, from what I heard, was still causing problems. She'd apparently tried to get Dad to sue me again, this time claiming emotional distress. Dad refused. That caused a huge fight, and they separated for about 2 weeks before getting back together. Dad and I had coffee last week at a diner on neutral ground. First time we'd seen each other face to face since the eviction. He looked older, thinner. The apartment with Linda wasn't going well. She'd taken a part-time job at a department store because money was tight, and she blamed Dad for their situation every single day. She wants me to ask you for money, Dad admitted, stirring his coffee. Says you owe us. What did you tell her? I told her no, that I'm not going to beg my son for anything. Good. We sat there for a while, not saying much. It was awkward, but it was something. On my way out, Dad stopped me in the parking lot. Your mother, he said. She really saw this coming, didn't she? She knew you better than you knew yourself. He nodded slowly. She always did. I got a promotion at work the same week. Senior electrical engineer. Better pay, better projects, my own small team to manage. My boss said I'd earned it, that my focus and dedication over the past few months had really stood out. I also started dating someone. Sarah. Met her at the dog park a month ago. She has a Bernese mountain dog named Captain, and Biscuit fell in love with him immediately. They play for hours while Sarah and I sit on the bench and talk. Last weekend, Sarah came over to the house for dinner. I cooked Mom's recipe for chicken parmesan, the one she'd taught me when I was 15. Sarah loved it. Biscuit sat under the table, hoping for scraps. Captain had stayed home, but Sarah showed me pictures of him on her phone. After dinner, we sat on the back porch and watched the sunset over Mom's garden. The roses were starting to bloom. The lavender was coming back strong. This is a beautiful house, Sarah said. It feels like a home. It's been in my family for generations. My mom grew up here. She had good taste. Biscuit wandered over and put his head in my lap. I scratched behind his ears the way he likes. Yeah, I said. She really did. So that's my story. Stepmother sold my dog. I pulled out the deed and evicted her within 24 hours. She tried to sue me and lost. Now she's living in a cramped apartment, working retail, and blaming everyone but herself for how things turned out. Guys, we are so close to hit 100,000 subscribers on this channel. If you are not subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing. It really helps hit that 100,000 mark. Thanks for making this dream come true.